Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, August 5th, 2019. Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Leaks May.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Here.
And Mayor Coulter.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum this evening. Next item of business would be the approval of the agenda.
Your Honor, I'd like to add regular agenda item 7E, which would be the swearing in of the interim city council member.
All right. Anything else?
Which one do we remove? 6E?
Well, I'd like to make two amendments. One is the removal of consent agenda 6E, approval of the contractors working on the Pinecrest and Woodward Heights resurfacing project to perform work as needed on Sunday through September 22nd, at the request of the DPW director. And I would like to add in presentation our Commissioner Helene Zach, who is not here right now, but will be when we get to her agenda item.
Okay. All right. Any other changes to the agenda?
I move we present the agenda, or approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Leaks May. Any other discussion? Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Now moving on to presentations, and we have 4 presentations now with the addition of our county commissioner. The first one is the Community Foundation Grant Awards, and I see the chair of our Ferndale Community Foundation moving his way over to the microphone, and our treasurer as well.
Thanks. Yeah, my favorite time of year, because essentially we get to give out money, which is a beautiful thing. So I'll take a point of privilege to explain a little bit about the Ferndale Community Foundation. I would argue it's probably one of the lesser-known nonprofits in the city of Ferndale, which is a city that's replete with nonprofits. We have many, many in this city, for the size especially. But that's okay. I mean, I look at the Community Foundation in Ferndale as kind of a foundational cornerstone to how many things get done in this city. We've raised money over the last 15 years or so in a number of different areas, from direct donation, including the kickoff of a donation of a house that got it started, to event fundraisers, from chili cook-offs to Tastes of Ferndale and a lot of different events. And we've even had the opportunity recently to step up and help Pride when they moved down to Detroit to be the fiduciary for Ferndale Pride. So we fund projects through micro grants, which are generally under $2,500, that support projects that benefit the city and its residents in areas of culture, art, education, healthcare. We funded everything from a biotech lab for the high school at one point to sustainability grants that hired full-time fundraisers to develop strategic plans for nonprofits. We proudly helped fund the costs of the paperwork to initially get Fern Care up and running and filing, and we've continued to fund Fern Care through the years. If you look at the nonprofits across the city, there are very few that we have not touched in some way. So with that, again, not the flashiest, but it is the foundation, and I think really the backbone of a lot of the nonprofit community in this city, and I think that's exactly the place that we want to be. I do want to recognize, because this work is done by a volunteer board, so I want to take the time, and these are folks that don't look for recognition, but I think deserve to be called out because they review grant applications, approve them, approve the administrative policies for Pride and things that we get it together. And first and foremost, our treasurer, Greg Polika, Mayor Pro Tem Greg Polika, has done a phenomenal job, both as treasurer for the foundation and for Ferndale Pride. And he's the guy with the money tonight. So as I call your name up, you really don't give a damn about me. You want to go up and see Greg when I call your name. And what we'll do is he'll have a check for you, and then we'll get some pictures with Kara. We'll get everybody together, go up and line up in front of council, because we don't need to see those folks either. And we'll get a picture all together of the grant recipients with the mayor. I also want to recognize local realtor Judy Palmer, president of our seniors Jeannie Davis, Sharon Chess, who's a local business owner and involved in a number of different activities. Mayor David Coulter, myself, and Toli Ashkenazi. Where's Toli here? Toli's from Soho. You probably know Toli when you see him around, and I constantly butcher his last name. So my apologies to Toli, but he's a critical member of our team. Did I forget anybody? That was it, right? Yeah. So what's that? I said Toli. Thanks for watching. We're good. So this year we're giving away in this round a total of $11,500. But wait, there's more, because what's yet to be distributed is through our work in supporting Ferndale Pride. There is another $10,000 to LGBTQ nonprofits that will be distributed later in the year. So there is more to come. But tonight, recognizing the good work of 6 nonprofits, totaling $11,500. So I will call them up, talk a little bit about the work they do very briefly. We'll get pictures, we'll get their money, and we'll be good to go. First one is Citizens for a Fair Ferndale. And their project is Season of Civic Engagement. And this grant money is going to go forth for programmatic offerings that CFF sponsors. There's an event every season, including a Good Neighbor Awards and a very critical discourse and conversation about civility and civil rights in our community. So very great work. Happy to fund it. Next, near and dear to my heart, Fern Care Free Clinic. Ann, there's somebody here? Oh. Okay, well, Fern Care Free Clinic, they have this great program where, and I want to acknowledge Basha Diagnostics, where they cut this amazing deal with Fern Care. And this money goes for paying for radiological services. So if someone without insurance goes to the clinic, needs an x-ray or a CAT scan, this money goes to pay for that service for those patients who don't have insurance and couldn't afford it otherwise. And it's just an amazing rate that Basha gives. It's a good deal all the way around. Next is the Ferndale Community Concert Band, Sharon Chess. For the concert band, we're funding a drum kit cost as well as used file cabinets to help store the plethora of music Sharon's been carrying around in her car. And start to, again, build the foundation of just an amazing resource. If you haven't had a chance to go to a concert for the concert band, please do so. The Ferndale Downtown Development Authority, I know she's here, Cindy. And this is money to help fund Art in Smart, which is those great art installations at the bus stops throughout town. So we'll get another one of those up and running. This next one is fun because I know there's a crowd here. The Ferndale School's Fine Arts Boosters. Come on up. If you are unfamiliar, I'm not saying anything bad about the football team, but we have an amazing band, award-winning statewide, and the funds from the Community Foundation will go to help offset the costs for props and visual props to accompany the 2019 show, which is called The Sound of Silence, right? Yeah? Okay. You look blank. I don't know. I'm not making it up. Last but not least, we have money to go to Renaissance Vineyard Church for their Raise the Roof project. So this is kind of unique for us, but falls within our mission because this is an infrastructure expenditure. But if you're unaware of everything that's going on in that little church at the corner of Pinecrest and 9 Mile, there is a, correct me if I'm wrong, food bank. They are a polling precinct for the city. There are support groups. If it ends in anonymous, they probably meet there. There's all kinds of community support that, truly, not anonymous anymore. It's good to know where those are, right? But truly, we're thrilled to help support the infrastructure to help continue that outreach into the community and support Renaissance. So that's what I got for you tonight. Let's give them all a round of applause. We'll get a few pictures.
Oh, yes. All right. Sure. Wow, that's always a treat. Thank you, Dan and Greg, for all your hard work on that committee. Unfortunately, Cindy's going to have to follow that act, right? But Cindy and the DDA update and Pride Window Contest Award, so more awardees. Is that you, Cindy, or?
Yeah, beautification.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, Robin's over there like shooting darts at me. Robin, I'm sorry. Next item of business is the presentation of the July Beautification Awards. Thank you, Cindy.
Good afternoon. And in July 2019, the Ferndale Beautification Commission selected these winners for Beautification Awards. The first one is on Orchard Street, 1446 Orchard. The owner is Melissa Renaud, and she and her wife Jennifer live there. Is Melissa in the room? Okay. Cute little blue house sitting here with a fully planted front yard. You'll have to walk by and just check out all the little details. They've done a wonderful, wonderful job there, and we wanted to let them know we appreciated that. I also understand that Melissa plays a pretty mean game of roller derby. The second winner is in the southeast quadrant, 475 East Saratoga. And you may recognize this house from it having won a Holiday Lights Award a couple of years ago. The day that we went to make the photo and put signs out in the yard, they happened to be doing yard work, and so there's bags of garbage out there, but trust me, they're not always there. It just happened to be at that moment. And so it's a lovely little corner right there. It was built in 1918, a 5-bedroom house, and the owner is Nick and Leanne Nunnally. Are you all here? Okay. Then in the southwest quadrant, we have this lovely, lovely little house on Leroy. And if any of you have ever been up and down Leroy, you realize that Leroy is very, very shaded. Lots of huge trees. And having a garden in a shaded area is a very big challenge. But the owners, Argy and David Lomas, certainly rose to the occasion. It's very lush, very filled with a variety of plant material, and we just thought it was very inviting. This house was built in 1924. The next winner in the northwest quadrant is 359 West Maplehurst. This big 2-story, eye-popping colored house has a fully planted front yard as well, and a cute little water feature in the front of it. If Ed Carney or Sarah Schrag is here, they are the owners of this house, built in 1926, and 4 bedrooms. In fact, that little strip down through there has some really gorgeous houses. Go check out the yards. Our business winner this particular month is the Oakland at 201 West 9 Mile. We thought they did an awesome job with their paint job on the front of the space there. The owner, Mr. Sandy Levine, or Levine, I'm not sure which, they have won many, many awards. And in their words on the holy script of Google, it is sophisticated speakeasy serving inventive beverages under ornate chandeliers. And when I took the sign in, because there is no turf to stick a sign in,
right,
and that concrete, they were quite ecstatic, and there was cheering throughout the facility, and so yeah, they were really, really happy to have been given the award. So thank them for all they did to create a beautiful facade on their business. August awards will be coming up soon. Please follow us and like us on Facebook and Instagram. The Coneflower will also be awarded next month. And if you would, get your nominations in by August the 13th so that we can then pick winners for this month. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Now, Cindy,
Now it's,
I believe it's your turn.
good evening, everybody. We wanted to come up and present our winners in our Ferndale Pride window contest, but I also realized, as part of Main Street Oakland County, we report statistics to the county on a quarterly basis. And as I completed the second quarter, I realized that we hadn't provided an update and kind of what's happening in the downtown for a little while. So I want to just quickly kind of give you an update on what happened the second quarter of 2019 in downtown. We had 5 new businesses open in the downtown, including Como's, Hook and Eye, Babylon Garden, Brooks Brewing, and Style Studio at Bags and Bades, right at the corner of 9 Mile and Woodward. So we're really excited to have all those new businesses there. And in the second quarter, that total of 5 new businesses, there was a total private investment in the downtown of just over $3.1 million. These new businesses created 60 full-time new jobs, 20 part-time jobs, and 85 temporary construction jobs. So they brought a lot of work and have continued to bring a lot of work to downtown Ferndale. Also, as far as funding, we have applied in this quarter for 7 grants. We have received 4 of them, of course, one of them today. Thank you, Community Foundation. We have 3 that are still pending, 1 on behalf of the DDA, a project, the Schiffer Park project, and 2 on behalf of our local businesses. So hopefully by the end of the month, we'll find out if we get those as well. But so far to date, we've received $29,500 in grants in the quarter. And then for sponsorships and fundraisers for special events that we do, we've pulled in about just over $12,000. So all this helps supplement our income and helps stretch what we do further so that we can provide additional services for our businesses and for people that come to the downtown. So with that said, in sponsorships and events, we do have some upcoming events through August and September as we round out kind of event season in downtown Ferndale. The Green Cruise bike rides are this Saturday. They leave from the City Hall parking lot. There's 2 different bike rides. Third Thursday, outdoor movies, our second movie of the season. We will be showing The Goonies next Thursday already, which already also kicks off the Ferndale Woodward Dream Cruise in downtown Ferndale. Then moving into September, we're showing Beetlejuice on the 3rd Thursday, and DIY and Funky Ferndale art fairs also come back. So now to the fun part, the Pride Window Contest. A lot of downtown businesses decorate for Pride anyways, and we thought it would be a really nice thing to kind of organize it all, have a contest, and we were fortunate enough that Level 1 Bank was willing to partner with us and offer a cash prize so that we could award some of this hard work with a little bit of money to help offset their costs, because they put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of cost into showing pride, not only to support the community, but also pride in their business and pride in this downtown. So we had 19 businesses enter this year. Their windows were amazing. The photos don't do it justice, so hopefully you got to get out and see most of them. If not, you can go on our Facebook page under Events, Pride Window Contest, and get a better view of them. But it was a great, so we were able to give away 3 judged awards. We had 3 judges that helped us pick, and then we also had a People's Choice Award where people could either vote online by liking the photos in the event page, or they could go into stores and cast a ballot, because we really wanted to do something to drive people into stores. So we had 571 ballots cast. And on those ballots, we just simply collected names, email addresses, cities that people lived in, and then we asked them why they love Ferndale Pride. And we ran the contest the entire month of June. So of those ballots and those people that took the time to fill out ballots, they represented 90 cities, 8 states, and 2 countries that came to downtown Ferndale. So it was pretty cool. It was an interesting thing to see. And the majority of the people, just over 25%, came from Ferndale. And then our neighboring communities, Detroit, Royal Oak, Hazel Park, and Oak Park. But we had people from as far away as Brighton, New Baltimore, Milan, Port Huron. And then, like I said, we had 8 states: Florida, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Washington, California, Minnesota, and of course then Ontario, Canada. So, also what we asked people is what do they like about Ferndale Pride? And it was really neat to read. And although there were some slightly colorful responses that I won't share with you publicly, yeah, they are. I never knew that Band-Aids were such a popular thing, but okay. Greg, I'll explain it to you later.
Okay.
But there were some really, yeah. There were some really
I had to explain
overwhelming
it to
themes and answers that came up. Mostly the sense of community, people. People also noted specific people that they loved about Pride, or quite a few noted that they actually met their spouse at Ferndale Pride. So that was kind of a cool thing. Acceptance, diversity, the colors and the rainbows, but most of all, the number one answer was the love that they saw and the love that they felt. So it was just, it's a neat thing, and we congratulate the team at Ferndale Pride. They really bring a great event to our city, and it was great to be able to hear all the positive things people had to say. So with that being said, our award winners, and it was tough because they were all really, really cool. And not only did they decorate their windows, they decorated their ballot boxes, it was crazy. So it was really hard. I'm glad I didn't have to be a judge. I'm not going to even tell anybody who the judges were so they can't beat them up. But so the first award they gave was most creative, and that went to the Candlewick Shop. The Candlewick Shop does something really cool every year, and they create a selfie station. So this year they did this really cool butterfly selfie station, and just tons of people took advantage of it. The next one was most prideful, and that was Dino's Lounge. And it was really hard to get a really good picture because they have such a long storefront, but literally every window, every planter, everything you could hang something prideful or rainbow off of, they did it. So it was really cool. It really drew attention not just to 9 Mile, but to Woodward. And then Most Ferndale was an award that went to Modern Natural Baby, who again have a really giant storefront that it was impossible to capture in one photo, but they did 3 separate windows. And then John even came outside and colored in their existing window artwork in rainbow colors. And then they also allowed people to use, I think they were crayons or something, window markers that washed off to write their pride messages on the window as well.
So just to tell you, that whole window was just filled with like messages of just love. And it was the most beautiful thing that it wasn't really us winning, it was the community just giving, I don't know, messages. And that whole thing up high, everything was filled up. So people were getting on each other's shoulders and writing on it.
Right.
And it was our most beautiful window. So.
That's awesome.
And then the final
It was
one,
beautiful.
the final award was the People's Choice Award, and that was for the most ballots cast, both online and in person. And that was Ferndale Elks.
Wow.
They definitely brought out the people to vote. They had lots of
They got a lot of
in-person
members,
ballots.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, lots of
My, how times have changed.
So although I don't have the actual checks for them today, unlike the Community Foundation, I just wanted to really call everybody up and was hoping Kara could get a picture for me of all our winners as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
You guys can just stand up there.
Yeah, come on. And Cindy, you have to join them.
And as always, anything you want to know about anything, downtownferndale.com.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, I don't know.
That was really good stuff.
Excellent. Yes, well done.
If I may, through the chair, we probably want to say a happy 10th anniversary to Modern Natural Baby as well.
Yes, wow.
And happy 5th anniversary to Embrew as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. I remember cutting that ribbon. Time flies. 10 great years and many more to come. Love you guys. Thank you. All right. That it, Cindy?
That's it. I'm
All
just
right.
trying to make this go away.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was, the city looked beautiful. It was inviting. It was, the business owners were amazing in support of Ferndale Pride. Couldn't have gone better. I don't see our county commissioner has joined us, so maybe we'll give her an opportunity when she arrives. So that would be the end of our presentations. Now, the next item of business would be call to audience, and that's your opportunity, for those of you who are here with us in person, to come on up and address council on any issue that's not on the agenda. because we'll give you an opportunity to speak to those when we get to that portion of the agenda. But come on up, give us your name and address, and 3 minutes is yours.
Only 3 minutes.
That's all you get, Jeannie. You know the rules.
Jeannie Davis, and tonight I'm wearing my hat as president of the Ferndale Senior Group. A week from Wednesday, August 14th, once again, we're hosting our Ferndale Senior Candidate Forum. This is your opportunity to meet up close and personal the candidates running for council and mayor for the city of Ferndale. There'll be questions. It goes from 11 a.m. to about 12:30, probably slop over a little bit later, and that's on August 14th, Wednesday, 11 a.m. at the Kulik Community Center. It's free, everybody's welcome, you don't have to be an old person to come, so come ahead, you're all welcome. The other thing too is, the following, 2 weeks from then, August 24th, we have a docent coming from the DIA to speak about some of the treasures at the DIA. Several times a year, we have docents and they show slides, and you always walk away knowing a little bit more about art. So, come to our meetings.
Yeah. And Jeannie's a very entertaining chair, so if no other reason, it's fun to watch her run a meeting. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alex Petrus. I live at 511 East Woodland Street. So I've lived in Ferndale most of my life since I was a kid, and recently purchased my first home at the Woodland address. So upon purchasing the home, I found out that the home that I bought directly next to it is a 8-unit small apartment complex. Now, because of what's considered a existing nonconformance, there is a dumpster about 25, 30 feet directly from my back door, from about here to that fan. The dumpster is never properly taken care of. The cover is usually left off, or there's holes that rats and animals chew into. If I keep my windows open in the summer, I'm smelling trash. If I'm hanging out in my backyard, I'm smelling trash. There's flies all over. It's just a really gross situation, and I'm hoping to have taken up for consideration, the idea of potentially moving this or bringing this up to code. There's plenty of other places in this back area that, first of all, it's along the side fence, which, if this was built now, it would not be allowed to be placed there, and it's been there for 25, 30 years from what I've been told. Multiple neighbors, multiple tenants, and multiple previous tenants of the home that I now own have complained and had issue with this, but unfortunately, due to it being grandfathered in, there hasn't been a kind of update to code. It's just really been an ongoing issue. There's consistently, liquid trash, whatever coming out of the dumpster. There's trash. I've found broken glass and trash that basically are on the top of the lid, and when somebody opens it, it gets flipped off into my yard. And I've found all kinds of gross and dangerous stuff in there. And I have children and pets and that are in the yard, and it's an issue kind of along a lot of lines. And what I'm hoping to do is to propose for consideration that the dumpster may be reviewed to view one of the multiple different locations that really would make this a non-issue. I've spoken with like the city manager and kind of a few other folks, and essentially we're at the point that based on the current ordinance and the fact that there hasn't been major construction, there's nothing that's been causing this to come up to code. But I also know that the concept of an existing nonconformance and grandfathered in is that this will eventually go away. And unfortunately, in speaking with some folks, the only real thing that would cause this to be brought up to code, it's not resurfacing the pavement, it would be like major construction on this building, which is really doubtful. And I've spoken with the landlord, who's a non-Ferndale resident, for-profit business owner, who owns other properties, and I lives, I think, in Royal Oak it was, and she's just been completely unwilling. And there's a lot of other folks and neighbors who see this as an eyesore. It stinks to high heaven. All this week, like for instance, it didn't get replaced. It's supposed to get changed every week. It wasn't changed. Some weeks she just decides to skip it, which is not allowed. And so it's just been this trash smell for 2 weeks. And Unfortunately, there's no real way to have a pain point, because if there is something that's out of ordinance that needs to be changed, she's got 1 week to fix that before any ticket, fine, anything can be issued. Unlike maybe for if your grass isn't cut, you get a freebie, but after that you would get a ticket. This isn't like that, where anything can be out there, bags of trash, all kinds of stuff, and then there's nothing to be done except she cleans it and it's over.
Joe, are you familiar with this address?
I'm guessing you might have met with the previous city manager, but I can certainly work with our code enforcement team and economic development team. We're actually doing a sanitation study right now for the downtown, and we're examining sanitation enforcement methods, and I think that we can take this opportunity to include the rest of the city into the actual study of what we can and cannot exercise in terms of sanitation enforcement.
If you could give your name and address to that gentleman right there who's in charge of our code enforcement, we can make sure to respond and see if there's something we can do for you. Thank you.
Great.
And just let us know, let council know what, yeah.
Through the chair, I think.
Appreciate
that's-
it, Alex.
through
Thank
the
you very
chair, I
much for
think
your
That's a
time.
great solution, but I don't want to get us to get lost in the study. Take action
Yeah.
and include it in the study.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that shouldn't,
Yeah,
We need to
it's
look
one of those things that I'm
yeah,
in
you
an
shouldn't have
attempt
to
to
live
be.
in that kind of situation,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and I'm in an attempt to be as reasonable as possible. There's
Yeah.
multiple solutions, and anyone who saw that dynamic would say, "Hey, that's not right."
Yeah.
Well, through the chair,
Yeah.
to our council, we're dealing with almost a health issue. How can something grandfathered in that's dealing with a health issue?
Through the chair, I think that we need to study that, but the suggestion that it is grandfathered, I don't think that is accurate to the extent that it's creating a nuisance condition. So certainly the details and facts have to be explored, but there are codes within the Ferndale City Code that would allow for abatement of nuisance conditions.
Okay, thank you.
So we will take this seriously. I'm sorry you didn't get a adequate response last time, but we'll look into it and make sure they get back to you, okay, Alex?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
for
much. I
bringing it to our
appreciate
attention.
everyone's time.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Alex.
Yeah. That's- Good evening.
Good evening. Evelyn Elster, West Drayton. Twice a month, this council convenes and contracts yet another consultant study to be performed regarding anything and everything this body wants to accomplish at a cost to the taxpayers of $20,000 to $70,000 on each occasion. This adds up to well over $1 million per year. Property owners of Ferndale do not have an endless supply of funds to squander or pad the profit margins of consultants or developers. I propose a moratorium on these studies, as the taxpayers of this city cannot afford these costs being imposed on us by council much longer. Instead, I also wish to propose the hiring of a full-time data miner for the city to present council with viable options to whatever pipe dream council imagines to implement. This would be a position of both computer mining and boots-on-the-ground information gathering, and should run the taxpayers less than $80K per year, with a subsequent savings of over $1 billion per year. Under any other circumstances, the plan manager and CED offices, along with other staff, would perform this work, but obviously those departments in Ferndale are incapable of the task. I also must take issue with the $6.6 million budget allowance for Parks and Rec. The $45 million bond millage we passed only allotted $2 million for parks and the balance for street work. Now we see that the street work portion is being diverted to the pipe dreams of the Parks and Rec Department? This is unacceptable. It's not?
That would be unacceptable, but it's not.
Where's the $6.6 million coming from?
Operating budget, the city's operating budget. The bond money is $2 million for the parks, the rest for the roads. That's legally, has to be spent that way. We couldn't spend it any other way.
So 6.6 for the parks.
Comes out of the general fund budget.
What's it usually? Before
Well, anyway,
this last
This
budget?
is your opportunity to talk. I don't
Yeah,
wanna get
yeah,
into it.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Good evening. We missed you in presentations, but happy to have you here.
You changed your meeting. I was at Oak Park first.
We
so
did.
I had a lovely invitation notification from Councilman Polika to invite me to come tonight. So thank you for fitting me in. I'm Helene Zach, your Oakland County Commissioner. And in particular, Councilman Polika wanted me to talk about replacing our county exec. And sadly, Brooks Patterson died on Saturday, our county exec, from pancreatic cancer. And I do express my condolences to his family, his friends, and his very long-term dedicated staff. So the process of what happens, acting county exec was sworn in. His chief deputy county exec, Jerry Poisson, was sworn in on Saturday, and he will run things until either there is an appointment or he will continue running if it goes to an election. So the Board of Commissioners have the opportunity to appoint somebody within 30 days to replace Brooks Patterson, and that person would serve until the end of 2020 to finish out his term. And there will be an election in the fall of 2020 to find a permanent replacement. The catch-22, there are 21 county commissioners, and we have, for the first time in 40-something years, we have a Democratic majority, of which I am one of them. It is 11 Democrats and 10 Republicans. And by charter, by law, if you want to be considered for another elected, countywide elected official, you have to resign from the Board of Commissioners first. So you can't vote for yourself, and I also can't vote for somebody who's still serving. So it is an interesting development how it's going to play out, and it is my hope and that we will vote on a replacement within the 30 days and sooner versus later. So are there questions about that?
Well, I am curious, because you mentioned, if I may through the chair,
Of
sorry.
course.
You mentioned that you would be selecting from the 21 current commissioners.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
It can be any
It can be-
person, but
okay.
there are different, if we selected from the existing 21 commissioners, and there's clearly one, commissioner, our chair, Dave Woodward, is vying for this position. And then there is our treasurer who has filed to run for county exec. And then there are other interested Republican people for the office, or we could appoint a business person. So it could be anybody that could be appointed to serve out the term, but just the complicated if we take from an existing elected official.
Okay. And if someone was interested in being considered for that position, what would the process be?
Well, we're not soliciting, applications right now, but if there's somebody that really wants to reach out to me and see what I can do,
Not me, I just, for clarity, not me.
I'm happy
I'm glad you
to. Unlike the very firm, nice way that City of Ferndale is replacing former Councilwoman Melanie Piana, and there's a application process, 30-day. We don't have that right now, but we probably should. Other questions about that? If not, I have a couple other things.
Sure, go ahead.
So I am leaving some senior newsletters in the back, and most importantly, it does have my picture on it. I don't necessarily like that, but it does have some good resources on the back. Some important calls like the Nurse on Call in the Health Division that I have used a lot for the measles and other good resources for all of us. I also want to talk about our sticker contest, which is actually being run by our county clerk and the Board of Commissioners. So we're going to be celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote. And we have a sticker contest for, the stickers that you wear, that I voted. And so we are asking for students in grades 6 to 8 and 9 to 12 to design, a sticker. And they are eligible to receive a $1,000 scholarship from a bank. And so there are different conditions. Designs must portray the celebratory theme of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. And there's details about it. If you are interested in applying for it, and I want to see a Ferndale person win, go to www.oakgov.com/votesforwomen to learn more details about this contest. And let's, push it out there. I posted it on Facebook. And I know that Councilman Raylon Leaks May shared it, and let's spin it around Ferndale and win one of these.
Awesome. Got a lot of creative people in Ferndale. So.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Good evening. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, my name is Sally Sawyers. I live at 258 Jewel Ferndale, down the street from Suburban Ford. We had an incident on Suburban Ford last week. Well, there was somebody taking a car out for a test ride. They must have had something in the muffler or something that sounded like gunshots going down the street. They went all the way around the block. So, of course, there's a couple of neighbors that came outside to see what the noise was. So one of the neighbors walked down to the end of the street and confronted the person driving the car. And then all of a sudden I see hands flying. So when the neighbors called the cops to come down and talk to us about it, well, the cops came, but they turned in front of the dealership and never did come down the street to talk to us. So we really need to do something about the speed on that street. And I talked to Justin about getting a petition to get speed bump put on that street, because that's the only way that we are going to stop them from drag racing down the street. And we do have new kids on the block, and we do have an autism kid on the block. And parking, you have to really watch when you come out to cross the street. You better look twice, because cars that are parked there to wait for other cars, they're there in 1 second. I don't know how many times I have to look to watch for cars. And we really do need to think about getting them a parking lot, letting those houses go, because those houses are just deteriorating. So I hope that the city looks at that for us people on the street.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Sherry.
Good evening, Mayor. Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. Two things tonight. I was at Sacra this morning at the on Crooks between 14 and 15, and usually go when I have a lot of stuff, and I found there's new stuff they're taking. Not just the hazardous waste. I had a Royal Oak Friends big jug of Roundup. That's hazardous waste. And electronics. A lot of us have electronics that aren't useful anymore, but if we can take them to Sacra, a big load. I didn't have time to say, hey, fill up my minivan. Sometimes they weren't asking me for my ID, and normally they do to make sure you're one of the Sacra communities. They'll take cardboard you don't have to break down, metal, bottle caps, a whole dumpster full of bottle caps, CDs and DVDs, Netflix wins, hardback books, the paperback books can go into your recycle bin, plastic bags and bread bags, shake them out for all the breadcrumbs. They have a whole bin for those, styrofoam, or as an engineer friend of mine calls it, polystyrene, either way. And then they have a big paper shredder there as well. Also, one of the cardboard things I forgot to say last time that can fit in your bin, anyone who's in charge of hospitality at meetings and you get these cardboard things for coffee out of Baskin-Robbins or Tim Hortons, take the pouch out and the cardboard thing can be fold it up and fit into your bin, and that's a lot of cardboard not going into the trash. The other item is on Wednesday night, August 21st, at the Oak Park Community Center at 7 o'clock. The Green Party is going to have our own Kat Bruner-James talk about ranked choice voting. This is something that Ferndale was first or one of the first in Michigan?
Second after Ann Arbor.
Oh, well, okay. Ann Arbor. So Ferndale was the second non-Ann Arbor town to pass ranked ranked choice voting, which says a lot for us, but the machines supposedly couldn't do it. Well, the machines can do it now. The state of Maine has used it, and she'll tell you the other little Michigan town that has also used it. So you have to come at 7 o'clock to the Oak Park Community Center for a talk about ranked choice voting, and she'll tell you whether or not we're going to be able to use that in November. She knows, but she hasn't told me yet. No charge, there will be refreshments, and there's plenty of parking.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Angela Karolak, and I'm here regarding the billboard at 10 Mile and Hilton. I don't even want to say this because I don't know if that kid is still here, but I am the landlord of the building right next door. This billboard is less than 100 feet away from the side of my building. I never received a letter back in 2014. I got it on an email today after I spoke to the code enforcement officer, Adam, and had everything emailed over to me. How did this pass? You have brought down the value of my building. 22 years ago, I'm not urbane, I'm just a mom and pop owner here. 22 years ago, I bought this building and cleaned it up. I mean, we had syringes taped to the back of stoves in there. It was a mess. Every penny that I've made in this building has went back into this building. And now I see this. And I have never received a letter about this going on. I pay taxes every year, quite a sizable amount of taxes every year. You know my address, where to send those, but I never received anything on this billboard. Now, when this billboard comes into my building, which it will, are you going to be there to help me? I understand that there was a lawsuit and this was a settlement with the city. Clearly, it wasn't a settlement. Clearly, they won. This thing is huge. It does not belong where it's at, and it certainly is not welcome with my tenants. I've already got a call today from one of my tenants wanting to go month to month now. You're working on my bank account now. That was my bank account. Now, I imagine my taxes will probably go down now, right, because the value of my building has went down. I'm sure that won't happen. I mean, this building, and I think you're on the code enforcement, if you check around, I've been told that it is really one of the nicest buildings in Ferndale. We had a really nice, clean corner there, and it's ruined now. Now, I understand there's not going to be any kind of LED lighting. I don't know what it's going to be. Is it big enough? I've never seen anything so big in my life. So what do I, if I call you in 2 weeks and say that I have lights blaring into my apartments, can you do anything for me? This is a lawsuit, a settlement.
Yeah, can we,
You clearly need new attorneys.
on the light issue, Jordan or Joe, can you speak to that?
I can speak to the code side of it, absolutely. But I think we have other folks here that can speak to the overall context. But just
Jordan, can you go up to the
Oh, sure,
podium,
sorry.
please?
Yeah, through the chair, why don't I just provide a brief overview, synopsis of where we're at? Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought.
Well, I want to address her issue of the light. That was her question, right?
Yes,
If I understand.
and why is that there?
Okay.
I mean, you took there's one that was taken down on Woodward for this
All
one
right,
to
so-
go up where it's
Yeah,
at?
who,
Well, I was going to, I'll introduce. So briefly, a billboard was proposed by a group in 2014. Our building department had rejected that per our sign ordinance. Then that went to the planning commission, and the planning commission denied it. It was also denied by the BZA. They challenged that opinion from the city, and then we went through a legal process that ultimately resulted in a settlement agreement that resulted in the reduction of one billboard that's currently located in the Central Business District in exchange for this one off the service drive off 696. And that was ultimately the settlement agreement. There was restrictions placed on the use of the board, including it could not be digital, which they initially wanted. It could not be electronic either. And their lighting would have to be subject to code in terms of the billboard. And to that, the CED Director, Jordan Torty, can speak to how that process is facilitated by the building department for where we are today.
Hi, just for the folks that don't know, Jordan Torty, CED Director, so I oversee planning, building, and code enforcement. I won't bury the lead. This thing will have to comply with all applicable local code. It will not be digital. The lighting on the billboard will have to, there's foot candle requirements for lighting that it is allowed to emit. We're actually holding a $25,000 performance bond on this, so we're going to have a final inspection when it is complete to verify, looking at, and the agreement was, the long story short is the agreement was sort of given to our department as a starting point. So with that sort of governing what is happening with this billboard, from that point, we look at it like any other project. So now all of our code stuff applies, all our inspections. So our team will be looking at that when it is complete. They'll have to call for inspection. It'll have to follow all applicable building codes, including foot candles and lighting. And we are holding that bond, $25,000, until we can verify that it's complied with everything. And then thereafter, if there are any lighting complaints or any other maintenance complaints, if the thing's got peeling paint, if it's got the wrong lights on it, if stuff is falling apart, we can be called and we can issue tickets for that. So what I can do is I can let folks know our department's phone number. In fact, you can go right to me, 248-546-2525, extension 109. I'll give that one more time, 248-546-2525, extension 109. Or you can use the C-Click Fix system. You can go online. Ma'am, I believe you mentioned you talked to Adam. He is our lead inspector, so he coordinates the code enforcement team as well. So our whole team is available if there are issues. But that, just in general, that's kind of how our department looked at it from the starting point of this agreement.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hi.
My name is Effie Lambrose.
Just go to the mic, just so folks at home can hear you as well.
My name is Effie Lambrose. And
Effie?
Huh?
I'm sorry.
Effie
Effie.
Lambrose.
Thank you, yes.
And I live at 3351 Goodrich. I open my front door, I see a lot of steel. I go to the kitchen, I see a lot of steel. I mean, in 2014, we came here and we requested not to be built. And what happened? I don't know. Nobody told us anything. Nobody said nothing about anything. I mean, we pay taxes. I've supported Ferndale for 61 years. I could have moved out, but no, I chose here. I also have a business here, but I chose Ferndale because I love Ferndale. But it feels like Ferndale let me down.
Thank you.
My name is Bonnie Barber. I live at 3350 Goodrich. And to the north of me is that ridiculous monstrosity. It is every window I look out on the north side of my house, and the east side is that horrible thing. Now, it's going to be really bad when we have the bullet, whatever they're going to put up there. I have no idea. But I was with Effie when we came in 2014, and it was voted down by council, and we asked that it not be put up, and here we are. The next thing I know, they're putting footings up. And it was so huge, I knew that something bad was going to be going up there. And I came in and I spoke with Adam. And he said, well, there wasn't much we could do. It was a judge authorized this. Okay, when was that? Why weren't we notified of anything? I mean, I just think it's wrong that it's going to really affect our lives. especially me. I'm right there. I'm next to her apartments. And it doesn't seem like anybody really cares. I've lived in that home. It's been my family home for over 70 years, almost 80 years. I've lived there for 60 years. It's my home, and I have to look at that. I'm really disappointed in the city, the council, all of you. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Hi.
My name's Madreen Larson. I live at 2487 Brickley, right at Lenox. I'm the second to the last house in the city in the northeast end. And I did call over at 696 in Hilton right there. They're doing something, but I've been told it's Oakland County, and we're not quite sure what it is that's going on. It's on the freeway side. Everything's being bulldozed. There's a fence. And nobody can quite tell me what's going on right there. My concern is, remember the big flood not too long ago? What are we doing with drainage? What's going on right there? It is a huge corner, and nobody knows, because it's Oakland County. They don't
Jordan, is
tell
that on your
Ferndale?
radar? Are you aware of that? I'm
Off the top
not.
of my head, but we can get it on
Yeah.
ASAP.
Through the chair, I believe that's the Oakland County Road Commission's project, and we can certainly get.
But we can find out from Oakland County Road Commission what they're
Because my
doing.
concern is, remember
Yeah.
the flood? I'm the second
Right.
house right there. I'm going to catch an awful lot of water.
Yeah.
And what's our repercussion if that happens?
If you give Jordan your contact information, we can let you know what we find out.
And through the chair,
Yeah.
when we do contact Oakland County Roads, can we have them notify the residents within at least 500 feet of that project? That's what we do. They
We
should
will
be doing the
reinforce
same
our
thing.
policy
Yeah.
with them. Absolutely.
Good point. Thank you.
Or just do it ourselves.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair, I don't know if the city manager heard that, or I don't see Oakland County doing that, or we should just do it ourselves. 500 feet.
Sir, come on up.
Good evening,
Good
Council.
evening.
My name is Alan Voltaggio. I live at 3171 Grayson Street, just southwest of the billboard that's being built up at Hilton and 696. I also run a business at 3285 Hilton Road. Just being in the area, I'm just kind of befuddled as to how soon and how quickly something like this kind of pops up. Just curious if there was any, I'm finding out now today that there was talk about this in 2014, but I don't remember anything coming through to the residents. And I'm just curious about like the pressure that's applied to City Council. I know that you guys do a really nice job of fielding the residents' concerns about projects. There's been developments that have been pushed back adequately, and I really appreciate, you know, all of your efforts on that end. In the spirit of just understanding a little bit more, I know that people with money, power, and influence have a tendency of kind of weaseling their way into things, and I'm curious as to, is that the way that we're going here? Is this an issue of being bullied into something just because there's a negotiation? And I'm not saying that it's easy to do this, and I don't envy the position to have to make those, you know, those judgment calls. It's just kind of concerning that if the residents and the business owners kind of wonder about this unsightly thing, how is that going to be dealt with? And if it is a new structure, it'll be 10 to 15 years before you start seeing any degradation in the quality of those materials anyway. The paint won't peel. The lights may be too bright, but will that not be too late? Are you going to say no more lights? How does that affect the apartment building? I don't live in that building. I live by Harding Park. There's a tree canopy or a tree line that masks that whole thing. I only see it when I walk into work every day. So just one of those things where I'd like us all to just be mindful of, where we are with the dialogue with the residents, and the community in general. And you guys do a mighty fine job of interfacing with everyone. So I really appreciate your candor in that regard. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your remarks. Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Linda Popke. I live at 3334 Goodrich. I'm also here about the billboard. You know, I understand in this meeting a lot has been talked, sorry, I'm not good at public speaking.
You're great. You're fine.
You know, about the beautification of 9 Mile, other homes, and then we get shit on. Sorry, but it's so ugly. It affects the value of our homes. I spend close to $200,000 on a house. I pay an unbelievable amount of taxes. And then this, I mean, will the city be willing to reassess homes, lower taxes? I mean, it was a slap in the face. You care about the beautification of other areas, but you don't care about the beautification of that one. And it's insulting. It's incredibly insulting. And, I mean, will anything be done about our taxes? I mean, the value of our homes, have they not been lowered? You walk into my backyard, all you see is this billboard. Do you want a billboard in your backyard? Would you buy a house with a billboard in the backyard? Would you? Any of you? Would any of you buy a house with a billboard in the backyard? No? You won't even answer? It's embarrassing. And it's insulting. And it shows which residents of Ferndale you care about and which ones you don't. That you're not even willing to answer my question of whether or not my house can be reassessed and taxes lowered. I pay close to $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year. That's more than my mom pays in Grosse Pointe. It's ridiculous.
I will say your house gets reassessed every year, and if that were to affect the value of your house, it would be reassessed for that. I mean, I'm not an assessor, but that's an annual process.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? All right, seeing none, I will close the call to audience, and we'll move on now to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is items that council considers routine, and we enact in one motion unless something is removed from the consent agenda, which one has been, and I'll read that now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held June 24th and July 8th. 2019. Item B is the approval of a special event permit for the 2019 Pulse Fitness Ironridge 1K Walk and 5K Run on Sunday, September 29, 2019. Item C is the approval of the request to amend the corrective quitclaim deed for 906 Emwell Street. Item 6D is the approval of the resolution to accept the 2019-2020 Transportation Alternatives Program TAP Award for 2020 West Marshall resurfacing. Item E has been removed. Item F is the approval of the renewing the Transportation Improvement Association membership in the amount of $6,510 charged to Major Streets membership and dues account. Item G is the approval of $60,000 from Major Roads account noted to fund the Woodward Avenue traffic study. Item H is the approval of the right-of-way license agreement with MOGO for the Regional Bike Share Program. Item I is the approval of the Michigan Municipal League annual meeting notice on Wednesday, September 25th, and to designate an official who will be in attendance as submitted by the city clerk. Item J is the approval to renew the city's membership in SEMCOG at a cost of $2,783, budgeted to the account as noted, council membership and dues. And finally, item K is the approval of the bills and payroll as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review by the council finance committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda this evening?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
All right, moved by Martin and supported by Leaks May. Now, is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Yes.
In regards to 6G, the approval of $60,000 from Major Roads to fund the Woodward Avenue traffic study. Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge are the only ones willing to bottleneck Woodward in order to provide bicycle traffic. Bicycle traffic is 7 months out of the year, maybe, The rest of the time, we have snow. This is Michigan, not Key West. So I would like you to not approve 6G.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Marty, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Polka,
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on now to the regular agenda. Item A is the consideration of the appointment to fill the city council member vacancy. Marnie, are you going to introduce that item?
Yes. So on July 8th, when City Council member Piana resigned to leave for to run for mayor, that opened up a opening on the city council, which is required by charter to be filled within 30 days. So the meeting that was originally scheduled for August 12th was moved to tonight, as tonight is that 30-day deadline. Council set the process that I would accept applications from July 8th through the 29th. That's close of business, which was 5:30. The only vetting that my office did was to assure that the applicants were 25 years old, 2-year residents, and they were all citizens as they were all registered voters. We had 4 applicants, Catherine Bruner-James, Colin Garcia, Sherry Wells, and Dennis Whitey. On July 30th, a news story was released on the city website, and that was the first time that the applications went live both to council and the public. They were also released in the council packet on the council packet last Thursday. So all of the applicants were invited. I do see them all here tonight. We suggest a process where the candidates can speak up to 3 minutes about why they want to be involved in council, and then it's council's prerogative on the process from that point. So at that point, you could, have discussion, deliberation. If you make a motion and there is no second, then it would move on to the next person to make a motion. And we added the swearing in the oath of office at the end of the regular agenda tonight. So after you have made your decision, I will swear that person in after the close of business.
Thank you. Does council have any questions about that process?
No.
All right. And the 4 candidates are here. Should we do this alphabetically?
That's how I have had them listed.
Why don't we do that? That's as fair a way to do it as possible. I think that makes Kat the first one.
Technically, my last name is James, so Mr.
My bad.
Is it hyphenated or not? All right. Fair enough. That's fine. All right, Mr. Garcia, where is he? There you go. Don't let her throw you off.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
My name is Colin Garcia. When I heard about the opening position, I was ecstatic. Actually, I was planning to more seek an election in a couple of years. I wasn't quite ready. I was born and raised in Waterford, Michigan, and after graduating U of M, I went to Japan. It was only supposed to be for 1 year before law school, and then 1 year turned into 6, and I didn't go because I thought I was smart at the time. And then I moved back, and I moved back to Ferndale. And from the time 2011 to now, Ferndale has changed so much. I would never have set foot in Ferndale back in 2011. I thought there was nothing to do here. And to see the change that this town has made is just absolutely remarkable. Everyone here has done a great job. But why am I here? Well, I was told about, an hour ago that I was doing this, so thank you so much. Why am I here? That is a great question. One, I firmly believe that young people need to stand up and start making a difference. And I am tired of the complacency of people sitting on social media complaining about everything they have instead of giving up in front of this microphone and making a difference. That is why I'm here. I bought my house. I know what it's like to live on $50,000 a year, which is not a bad salary, and not being able to afford anything. I know what it's like to have student loans, $100,000 out of undergrad, and I'm tired of it. I'm here to try and make a difference in this community that I love. And as some of the residents have said, I do feel the East Side is kind of ignored sometimes. I see The downtown area is absolutely beautiful. West Ferndale, amazing. The east side, you know, I fixed up my house, I flipped it myself, but my neighbors' houses, I feel they could be pushed more. And this is why I'm standing up in front of you guys, is because I'm here and I want to make a difference when I can. And, you know, looking at this room, no offense to everyone, but there's not enough young people here. So this is why I'm standing here. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Good for you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Good for you. So Kat, there's no more avoiding it.
No. Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for your consideration of my application to fill the vacancy on council. First, I just want to say that all 4 applicants that you have today are really impressive and would be excellent choices. I've worked with both Sherry and Dennis over the years and have nothing but good things to say about them. I hadn't met Mr. Garcia until today, but I was completely impressed by his application. And we actually have the Flint Water litigation in common. We work for different firms on the same team on that class action lawsuit, so I knew he was a good guy before I met him tonight. I'm glad that council and the Ferndale community in general has 4 solid options for this position. As you know, I'm seeking to fill the vacancy, and I'm also hoping to fill a 4-year full term on council starting in January. I've worked with each of you throughout the years on various projects, so I know that you're familiar with me to varying degrees, but it seems appropriate to introduce myself to people present and watching at home who don't know me. My name's Kat Bruner James. I've lived here for 17 years. I moved here as a recent college graduate, rented a room with some other adults on East Saratoga, near downtown. I lived there for a couple of years, then I bought a house at the top of the market. It tanked within months. We were underwater on our mortgage for many years. We rented out our spare rooms to make ends meet. Eventually we were able to live there on our own, and now we share our home with a 4-year-old dog and a 2-year-old human. I share these personal parts of my history, including the fact that when I moved down here, I didn't have a car, I worked at the Natural Food Patch, so I kind of have a breadth of experience living in the community, struggling financially, depending on walkability, depending on being able to use a bicycle because I didn't have a car. And now I know what it's like to live in the community, feeling a little bit more stable, now having a young child in my house. And given our shifting demographics, I think it's helpful to have a variety of perspectives because I understand that some of our residents have different needs and priorities based on their experiences. I'm a civil rights attorney by profession, and while I'm tempted to point out that my experience as an attorney makes me uniquely qualified to take an analytical approach on council, all 4 applicants are actually from the legal community, so. In terms of my engagement in city government, I hit the ground running as soon as I moved to Ferndale. In 2003 and 2004, I was the treasurer and a volunteer coordinator on a ballot question committee that amended the city charter to enable an election reform that back then we called instant runoff voting. Now it's more known as ranked choice voting. The answer to your question, Sherry, is we believe it'll be here in 2021. We've had a lot of barriers to implementation, but we finally, through our city clerk, I've worked with 3 city clerks over the last 15 years to try and get it implemented, but we finally have a path to implementation through the state. I've also been on the board of Citizens for a Fair Ferndale for 14 years. I've been serving as the chair for just over 10. That is a nonprofit organization that's been fostering a community that is welcoming and inclusive to all people in the community. We're known for the Good Neighbor Awards. We hold candidate forums, known for the Good Neighbors Pledge. It's also been the launch pad for some other organizations, including Fern Care and the Ferndale Inclusion Network. I'm especially proud of the work I've been doing for the last couple of years on the Ferndale Inclusion Network, raising the racial consciousness of our community. I've also been directly involved in a number of committees and task forces through the city, including the city clerk's election task force, the master land, this is the longest task force ever, the master land use plan public steering committee, the police department's open data task force, and I currently serve on the civil service board. Over the years, I've attended planning commission meetings, Parks and Rec Commission meetings, DDA meetings, and more city council meetings than I can count. This year alone, I've attended several, especially in the last several months. I think I haven't missed one since, I have missed one since April because I was out of town for 1 week in June. So from a practical perspective, I have a good understanding of how this body and how the city government function by attending these meetings, and I've also demonstrated a commitment by showing up in person to these meetings. And finally, I think my demeanor is well suited for the position, frankly. I'm a litigator, so I have a fairly strong backbone for advocating for issues about which I feel passionately. However, I also know how to listen and collaborate and work through difficult decisions. I'm confident that my skills will benefit this body for the next 6 months and for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm conscious of the fact that I let that go about 5 minutes because, you have a lot going on. So I'm going to ask Colin if he wants 2 more minutes. You're welcome to have them if you like. I want to be fair to everyone. Okay. All right.
I'm going to law school.
All right. Sherry Wells. You may also have 5 minutes because I was very generous with Kat, and I'll be generous with all of you.
Well, I filled out the application and sent it in, and then I discovered that that particular form doesn't tell you when your word count is up, and it cuts it short. So that's one of the things I'd like to see changed. You have a very difficult decision to make, but I think I can make it easier for you. 2 of the people who are asking for this are running for the 2-year finish of Melanie Piana's term and 1 for the full 4-year. And 3 of us have been here for over a decade. I've been here 31 years this month. And I attended Ferndale City Council meetings 2 4-year stretches. One was when I first ran for City Council a number of years ago. I think I had better attendance than anyone up at that table for those 4 years. And then I attended for the 4 years around the City Charter Revision Commission. I was the biggest vote getter for that. I was the person out front, although I wasn't the only person advocating for that. But because I was the out front person, I was coming out of the Save-A-Lot parking lot walking, and someone was driving in and said, "Hey, Charter!" So I got a new first name. So I'm very familiar with the city charter. I think we should reduce the age for a city council person to 21. Kat and I have already talked about that. And but one thing that you don't have and haven't had for a long time up at that table is anyone from the demographics of over 60. And I think if you can only have for 5 months, you can get one who's over 60 and gives that other perspective. I've been involved in the senior programming and such. I was taking some of the seniors in my car to the Village Players dress rehearsal, and they were, as we drove away down well-lit Woodward at night, "Oh, this is what Woodward looks like at night." Seniors can be lots of fun. And you'll find out when you let me sit with you for the next 5 months. So I've been involved with Ferndale stuff. The DDA and the CCF both have honored me. Anyone who's seen those historical plaques on the buildings on 9 Mile Road and at the post office, my pseudonym is Mrs. Ferndale in 1920s vintage costume, and I got those things up there. The DDA bought them and they just sat, And our former historical museum director was a little annoyed with that and said, Sherry, I will help you with your Mrs. Ferndale script if you get those things up on the walls. I did and he did. I did a 5K walk with someone involved with the Green Cruise. We found we were mapping out the walk. And as we walked, I told them all these different little historical things about Ferndale, like in the Dales. There's a street called Robindale. Well, on a 1927 map, it's called Robindale. It doesn't exist. The mosquitoes still have it. And so he gets home and he said, could you type all that up? I can't remember all the stuff I said. But for someone who'd been, not spent my whole life in Ferndale, I found it a very welcoming, feeling like adopted to have moved here when I did. Prior city I lived in had people who'd been there for 4 or 5 generations, and you knew it. Ferndale has had people for 4 and 5 generations, and you get adopted. That's cool.
Thank you. And Dennis Whitey is next. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dennis Whitey. I know all of you up there, but for more of an introduction of those at home who's wondering who is this guy who wants to sit at my council table and represent me, I'm going to go over just a little bit of my history and qualifications and why I believe I'd be the best person suited for this temporary 5-month position. First, let me just say, though, that I don't envy your choice or your deliberation in this. All 4 of us, I believe, are extremely well qualified. There's no doubt for love of the city from anybody, from the 4 of us, nor everybody running this election. And so I don't envy that choice you must make. I'm an attorney. Currently, I run my own law practice, the Whitey Law Center. I focus on indigent legal services, mainly in the areas of criminal defense as well as family law. Part of that is volunteering through Lakeshore Legal Aid or the Family Law Assistance Project to represent domestic violence survivors within child custody and divorce type actions. I do know what it's like to run a small business. My office, unfortunately, is not located in Ferndale. The rent would be too high, unfortunately, so that's something to work on.
Ouch.
We need to make things affordable for all. So I've lived it. I don't just say it, I've lived it. But with that, I also am an employee of the Henry Ford Health System. I have to pay the bill somehow, and that is an emergency management coordinator through the Henry Ford Health System. I deal with all disaster management, grant funding, personnel management, as well as training. So in my past life, I was a police officer for almost 15 years. I worked for the cities of Hamtramck and River Rouge, very diverse communities. Especially in the city of Hamtramck, I learned quite a bit about getting along with others that are not, don't maybe necessarily think like you, have the same value system as you. And a lot of times it was those who didn't even speak the same language as you. And so learning to cross those barriers, there were 32 languages in the high school back then in Hamtramck. So there was quite an experience that I learned there. In addition, I'm an advanced emergency medical technician. I've worked with the city of Detroit as well as private ambulance companies to provide emergency and transport services. I have actually responded to calls in Ferndale in the past through American Medical Response when I worked there. My education, I have a Master in Public Administration, a law degree, bachelor's in political science, as well as an associate degree in criminal justice, and associate degree also in liberal arts from Oakland Community College. How I came to Ferndale is a long story, which I will shorten. The early 1900s, my great-grandfather immigrated from Poland. And he came in through the border with nothing in his pocket, found work in Tennessee, and was living in a boarding house on a tobacco farm of all places. And he met this girl named Bethel, who was my great-grandmother. Later turns out to be her. Bethel's mom did not want her to have that foreigner, that Polish person, my daughter won't be with him. Eventually, he had to move out of the actual home. And he made his way up to Michigan because there was more prosperity and opportunity for jobs. Even though he was just learning English, he managed to stay in contact with her, and they communicated by mail, and she eventually moved up to Highland Park with him. Once they were together, they settled in this small little house with all these ferns and all the trees around. And I knew my great-grandfather until I was in 6th grade. I was lucky enough to actually know him. And that house still stands today, 2120 Sonoma on the northeast side of town. It's been renovated quite a bit. It's a beautiful home, huge yard. But that's how it started. My mother grew up in Ferndale as well, and then she raised her children, as well as my dad raised their children in Ferndale. I grew up on Spencer Street on the east side of Ferndale with 3 sisters. I've been involved within the community over that time. Since I was a teenager, I was very involved in civic and political activities. And even from that time forward, I've been involved a lot of times with going to school so much, I couldn't be as involved as I wanted to be. But there was always something that somebody up there actually told me. They said, Dennis, you always show up in time of crisis to try to right the ship and to make things better. And I was very proud of the work in 2011. As Colin had brought up, we faced that financial crisis, and we had to eventually put on a millage to basically save our city services and the character of Ferndale as we knew it. So I was very proud of that work. Just with respect to the actual seat, how I believe I'm probably uniquely qualified is twofold. One being is that I actually have collected the petition signatures along with a team, collected petition signatures for this exact seat. I'm not running for the full term. I actually want this seat, and so therefore I think I'd be uniquely qualified. In addition, I don't believe the Ferndale City Council has ever had anybody in the southeast quadrant that lived east of the railroad tracks in the Hazel Park School District. I still live there. When I moved out of my mother's house, I moved on Spencer to the other side of the tracks, and then I bought another house. I live on Camden today with my dog, Princess, and everybody on Facebook knows Princess. But other than that, I would like to be the next city commissioner. There's a lot of responsibility to fill with the resignation of Melanie Piana to run for mayor. And I think, just given all of my background, it's very diverse, not just one streamline, but I think I'd be the most uniquely qualified for it. And I would submit myself for your support. And whomever you choose, I know as a collective decision, I know it will be right for Ferndale, whether it be me or any of the other 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Hi. Well done, all of you. Does council have any questions that they would like to ask any of the candidates? You don't have to.
I have comments. I don't have questions. I always have comments.
Yeah, my question is, did you actually ask the Historical Museum Society if anyone, there's never been a council candidate, southeast Ferndale, east of the tracks? Is that it? You can just nod.
No, I've not actually asked that.
You didn't research that. All right, I'm just checking. Okay, all right. What's that?
Ferndale became a city in 1927.
Yes, yes. All right. So comments would come after a motion.
Correct.
So a motion would be in order if that's council's pleasure. If you don't have any questions for the candidates. Motion sheet.
You just make a motion and name somebody to the appointment?
I'm sorry.
You just name somebody to the position instead of written out?
Just to open it, I move that we appoint Dennis Whitey to the position of council member.
Is there support?
Made the motion.
For the purposes of discussion.
For the purposes of discussion, then I support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to, to your motion, do you want to speak to your motion?
It's not an easy decision. Every candidate was right. I spent a lot of time over the weekend during my vacation reviewing the applications and reviewing my interactions with them as I could. One candidate I was not familiar with, but I've had interactions over the years with Sherry and Kat and Dennis, and honestly, this is a political move. Let's make no bones about it. I have worked very closely with Dennis on the 2011 campaign for the millage. I know the type of person, the individual that he is, his character, and his ability to get the job done. And that's the reason that I'm supporting his position.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Councilor
So
Martin.
I'd take any of you.
I got to be honest, this is one of the reasons why I'm comfortable not running for reelection this year, is that we have talented, capable people across the spectrum who want to step up and be engaged. Mr. Garcia, whether you get this or not, do not let this be your last foray into civic government in Ferndale. You have an incredible background and an incredible future and can accomplish really great things with some really supportive people here. So I pray and hope this isn't the last time we see you. If tonight's not the night that we appoint you to council, because I really think you have a fantastic future. Kat, I love you dearly. I think you got a great background. I'm proud to support you for your council seat for the 4-year term. I think you're going to make an excellent councilwoman when you're elected. Sherry, even though you ran against me 8 years ago, I've really grown to... I know you do. I've really grown to respect you. I love your tenacity. I love what you've done for this community. And your accomplishments are notable, and really your input has made this town, helped make this town what it is, and I really appreciate you. Dennis, I think that, all things being equal, because again, like I said, I take any of you. I think for me, the consistency is Dennis is seeking the seat. It slides into the 2-year term afterwards, so it's this continuity of service. So it's more a vote for that in my mind to support Dennis at this point than as opposed to anybody else. But I think you're all wonderful. And again, it's nice that I can go off of council knowing the future of council is in really great hands. So thanks.
Well said, thank you.
All right, so this has been a grueling decision for me. I know 3 of you pretty well, and Mr. Garcia, it was very nice meeting you, and I hope I echo Councilman Martin's sentiments. I really would be disappointed if you didn't stay involved, because we could use somebody like you, okay? So, want to see more of you. Kat Bruner James, I've known for, I don't know, about 8-9 years now. And I've worked on committees with her, and she has supported my campaigns. I was just looking back, because as I'm trying to make this decision, this horrible, horrible decision, that I look back on some of my campaigns from the previous years and how Kat was just really just full front and center of making sure that I had what I needed and just being a real support system throughout my learning years. So I know full and well that she is qualified for this position based on her background, based on her litigation background, which I've always loved about her. And, Kat's a mom now and would have a younger person on council. Be a parent of a younger person on council. It's no longer, just me. And she would be, for one, another woman on council, which would be nice. It's a lot of males going on up here. But stop it. So, with Sherry, I've gotten to know Sherry as well, who is also equally qualified based on her years of service in this community. And I've got to tell you, Sherry, I've learned so much, and I'm utilizing all your tips now regarding the recycling and passing it on throughout my children. So I really appreciate your vying for this position and still wanting to stay involved after all this time and in many different capacities. Dennis, got to know you too for about 8 years, about as long as I've known Kat. And I know of your background as well, and I really like how young you were when you started being involved in politics. That really has resonated with me, because that's important, because most kids are not picketing, or not picketing, but protesting, pornography sites that are to come on Woodward. So I really appreciate how long and how passionate you are, and from the age in which you started to be passionate about it. So my decision was based on not only qualifications, but because you're all qualified and you're all so different. Even though you all have legal backgrounds, you all bring so many different interesting details to the table. So I had to go with the person that I thought was one, the most, I don't know, eager. And I know about that. I know that sounds a little weird, but when I say eager, I mean I went for the person that actually loves this area, loves being involved in politics, in which we all do. But this person, when I talked to this person and asked about, and I learned that this person actually listens to these council meetings, and I think it actually listens to the council meetings as if, there's nothing else to do. Also, I've had the chance to witness this person in action recently at a certain event when someone asked regarding a particular issue and nuisance that has surfaced around Ferndale, and you hear so much about it. And the response told me that this person, of all things, had actually been thinking about ways in which to rectify that situation. It may not be the way, but knowing that this person thinks about these things, and we have so many things going on, I would have no doubt that this person has already thought about ways to solve those issues too. So, as hard as this decision was in the last 3 weeks, I will cast my vote for Dennis tonight. But I will say that my support for Kat Bruner James, make no mistake about it, I support her run for council. I support, in fact, I personally have been out walking for her just recently. And it's my hope and desire that we get the chance to work together. And I know we have a great working relationship, and we'll work together as well now as we did in previous ventures.
Well, I support the recommendation of council. I'll just add very briefly. Some of the things I was looking for, I have to say in the back of my head, I was hoping we would have attorneys apply, because we don't have one here. We have a wonderful counsel in Dan Crisp, but since Scott Galloway hasn't been on council, I think we missed something by not having a lawyer here with that legal perspective. And then to get 4 of them was just sort of like, wow, okay, that didn't narrow it down any. I have a bias for people who have experience and who have been in the trenches. And so I would reiterate, Colin, what they have told you, which is I hope you get some experience in this town. You'll find that we gravitate towards talented people that want to get involved, and if you're willing, we'll put you to work in lots of different ways that interest you. So it was really nice to meet you this evening. Yeah. Sherry, I've probably known you the longest. I was involved in that charter issue back in the day. I didn't run for the charter seat, but I was remember when the group first started meeting before the elections, and I remember you leading that group, and I've known you a long time. And I'll reiterate what Dan said, which is, even though you've run against me once, I've never held that against you personally, because I know that you're passionate about this community, and you bring a voice that would be missing on council. I don't think we have had a senior on council for a while, and so I appreciate what you have meant to this community and what you offer in your candidacy. And Kat, it's no secret that I am supporting you in the election, and I hope you get elected to a 4-year term. I know you will do an awesome job, not just because you're an attorney, but you're passionate and you're compassionate, and that shows through in your work with CFF and and the racial justice work that you're doing. So I can't wait to see you up here. It might take 5 months longer than planned, but my sincere hope is that we do see you up here. But I support Dennis for the reasons that were said, and I would just throw out a couple of other things. I think the fact that you were a police officer in such diverse communities, and I've witnessed this in you, Dennis. You have the ability to interact with lots of different kinds of people, and I think it's just because you're a genuine and authentic person. You're always yourself. I don't see you acting differently with different kinds of people. You're just always yourself, and yet you have a good cop way of sort of diffusing tensions and making sure people feel heard and valued, and you do that really well. The fact that you have a master's in public administration, by the way, I don't know if everybody caught that, but I know a lot of city managers who don't have that. So Joe does, he reminded me. But it's really impressive.
So do I. It's not that hard.
I don't have one. So I echo what Dan said, which is, and I said this after I gave my final State of the City. And one of the reporters said, do you worry that there's going to be so many people leaving? And I said, no, I feel comfortable knowing that there are so many talented people in this community that can step up and take my seat and Dan's seat and the other seat that's going to be available. So I really appreciate all four of you, but I'll support the motion. Thank you. All right. So if that's all the discussion. Any last thoughts or comments? Marnie, I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Potem Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. And Dennis, if you stick around until item 7E, we will swear you in. And again, thank you for all three of the rest of the candidates as well. You serve Ferndale proudly. Our next item of business is the consideration of the extension of the fuel purchase order. And Dan from DPW is going to introduce that item.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Dan.
So it's about that time of year again. Got to start purchasing fuel this fiscal year. So we would like to extend the purchase order that we had last year with Wayne Oakland Oil for another year. They are going to hold their delivery fee at 5 cents per gallon, like we had last year. It's much more favorable than like the state contract and other folks out there. Provide great level of service for us. The purchase order is for $205,000, but do keep in mind that it's not all of our fuel. The school board does fill up with us. Last year they did about $55,000 worth of fuel, which they get invoiced for and pay us back for. Your big consumers of fuel, department-wise, are us, police, and fire, and then the rest of them really don't use a whole lot. But that should get us through the fiscal year without having to come back to you. It is hard to say where prices are going to go throughout the year. Market goes up and down every single day, so the 205 should give us a little bit of cushion and get us through the entire fiscal year.
Anyone have any questions?
I have questions I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask to emphasize it. Anyway, so this is a budgeted item. It's not an extension or an over-budget item. We have $222,000 budgeted in this line item, and we're coming in under budget at $205,000, correct?
Correct. And then the remainder we use for our bulk oil, hydraulic oil, motor oil, and stuff like that for the vehicles.
Okay, so this is a planned for expense under budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
And I would just add that I think in the old days, we wouldn't have even brought it, but we now have a minimum level of purchases that have to come to council, because this is I don't want to say routine thing.
It's a control.
But it's a control.
Yes, it's a
Yeah, so,
The extension is for the purchase order.
Correct. Not the actual expenditure.
thank you, Cheryl. Yeah. All right, is there a motion?
I move the approval of the purchase order of $205,000 to Spencer Oil Wayne Oakland Oil for fuel. This expense will be charged to general fund motor pool, motor fuel/lubricants, account number 401443752, as submitted by the DPW Administrative Manager.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Leaks May.
So just a comment, if I could. Can we please have, whenever we're expending money, the dollar amount on the agenda? Thanks.
On the agenda itself.
On the agenda itself, because people at home read the agenda. They won't go to page 95 to look at what we're spending.
Right.
And then just a question of accounting. When the school reimburses us for the amount they use, does it go back into this fund or is it put into the general fund?
It goes, it's a charge for service.
Right, so does it
It's
go,
the charge for service.
okay,
And yeah, this is part of the general fund.
yeah, great, thank you. I'm good.
Anyone else? All right, Ronnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on now to item C is the consideration of the Woodward Avenue Bicycling and Pedestrian Safety Audit as part of the city's non-motorized transportation plan. And Justin is going to introduce that item for us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just for the record, Justin Lyons, Planning Manager for City of Ferndale. Before we get into the brief overview and presentation of what staff and the community and tool design have been up to over the past few months, I just wanted to, in case anyone hadn't heard, and because the council renewed our membership with SEMCOG, and we actually were awarded another TAP grant this month. I just wanted to let everyone know that the city and community was awarded a Regional Showcase Award from SEMCOG for the City of Ferndale's Ferndale Moves Multimodal Transportation Vision and Plan for this year. So SEMCOG held an award ceremony at the end of June just to recognize this community's commitment to providing transportation options, multimodal transportation options. And so staff was pretty excited for that. There's been multiple staff and community members and council members that have really worked on that over the years. And so we were pretty excited to get that news. And so that's really a big award for the entire community. So tied to that, just wanted to give a brief overview for those that weren't able to review the Woodward Avenue bicycling and safety audit, walking safety audit in the packet. Essentially, the city was awarded a grant from SEMCOG way back, I guess a year ago in July, to research some safety studies. And so that varies by community, but Pleasant Ridge and City of Ferndale decided to partner on, what could be the future of Woodward and really what's been going on there. Woodward's been a focus for a lot of the city plans over the years, as well as Pleasant Ridge plans, but regional plans, the Woodward Avenue Action Association plans. So really, this is just continuing a lot of that work and a lot of the feedback that we received as part of the Ferndale Moves plan a few years ago. So in January, we picked a firm, Tool Design, after an RFP process. Really in February and January, they did a lot of data review. In April, mid-April, not the best month for a walking audit, but there were a lot of brave souls that actually got soaked with us on our walk of Woodward, and just seeing what that's like during rush hour. Not always a pleasant place to bike or walk, but we got a lot of good information out of that walk. There was a survey that was sent out at the end of March and posted various places on Facebook and Ferndale Moves and the city website to get some feedback, and so that survey wrapped up around Memorial Day. And then that gave the team about a month to review and complete the final report. So the guiding principles and why would we pursue that sort of study really came down to these guiding principles. So safety being number one. We actually looked at a lot of historical safety data that informed what has really been going on that corridor in both communities. Quality of life, convenience, moving people through multiple modes throughout the corridor, economic development, sustainability, aesthetics and identity, and then just legibility of when people are walking around, do they know where they're going? Are they blocked by cars? Are there is signage adequate? And so those guiding principles led into the survey I mentioned. We had over 350 responses. On that survey, we had surveys at the library that people could fill out physically or at City Hall, and then most of the feedback was online. This is an image of just the walking audit. I think post-rain, everyone was pretty drenched at that point. But greatest concerns, and the entire survey data is all in the appendix of the report, but just some key highlights there. People's greatest concerns that filled out the survey were, being a pedestrian, concerns on a bicycle, both of those were 82%. Vehicle safety was 61%. But really, some of the deeper questions were, what were the major elements that are keeping you from walking and biking on Woodward? A lot of people felt that they felt danger crossing the street. Weather was definitely a concern, especially last winter. Distance, and then discomfort just from traffic. And then from a walking perspective, also discomfort from traffic. Some people didn't feel like they had a bike, but safety was really tied to both of those items. We did a deep dive into the crash analysis, and so I won't go into these too deeply, but 2/3 of the crashes occurred where drivers were turning right onto Woodward. And there really is a blind spot there between parked cars and really the angle of Woodward and building setbacks as well. So most of those fatal and debilitating injuries were where pedestrians were trying to cross Woodward, and we've heard about those over the past few years as well. And really that chart at the bottom is just showing, I think what's probably intuitive for most is that the faster a car is going, the higher the pedestrian fatality rate. So the 20 to 30 and 40 mile an hour examples are there. This is just an overhead image that was in the study, and we have a lot of images to try and help tell the story. But this is what a sort of typical crosswalk intersection looks like. You have the angle of the buildings. Some parking is kind of near the corner, which we've tried to adjust, I think, present day with putting bike racks and just making some of those areas non-parking. But a lot of elements cause people, they're trying to turn right. They're looking left. There's visibility concerns. And so that often means people that are pedestrians that are moving north are getting hit. This is just an overhead view from a median perspective of how many travel lanes there are, the current widths. This is not the entirety of Woodward, obviously, but this is more of the core downtown area. And so there's widths there, and you can see the on-street parking mixed with the streetscape elements. So the concept design. Let's see. So I should probably step back a little bit and say that the design focus was the safety audit, obviously, and then also, what is a concept design that could be implemented if there's not a major reconstruction coming forward. So we do know that MDOT is proposing to do a resurfacing project in 2020 that is, so it's what it is, it's resurfacing, not a full construction. So they're not ripping out a lot of curbs, they're not doing that. So knowing that could be coming, what are some concepts that we could consider to help improve safety on the street, and consider all those other guiding principles that I mentioned with sort of the width that we have curb to curb. And so this is just an example of one portion of the street. This is not reflective of the entire piece of Woodward, but essentially that would mean but flipping the parking so it is providing that separated protected barrier and looking at potential crosswalks where we could increase those because there are gaps in the crosswalk network, and you'll see that further in the study. And then also a two-way separated bike path on both sides of the streets. That's the concept that, from our recommendation perspective, would provide the most. If you really want to tackle safety, this is what you could do in the interim design.
Just for clarity, that's the exact same thing we have on Livernois.
Livernois is actually a one-way separated bike lane, but this would be two-way. So people that, because we had heard that crossing Woodward is a real barrier. So that keeps them sort of on this separated, almost a side path, if you will, within the existing curb area. So you can kind of see it there. It's easier to see in the report, but there are different areas where you would have to go around streetlights and things like that, but you could provide some separation there to make people feel more comfortable. In the survey and in the data, there's also a lot of, we looked at the gamut of all different types of options of infrastructure you could put in, and this was really where people felt most comfortable. Not pictured here because it's not something you can really draw, but also the study recommends adjusting some signal timing to allow pedestrians more opportunity to cross. That was really, one of the biggest takeaways from the entire report. In areas where, there should be new crosswalks as well. This is a picture that shows a little different perspective. This is at a signalized intersection. So you can see the number 2 up there is the separated side path. So the car is, this is where there is a no turn on red. This is where there is a signalized intersection with a traffic light where the car would be expected to stay back. They would have visibility of people that are moving, north and south. You have better visibility of people crossing east and west as well with some of the bumped out areas. And this is more of a, I'd say, more long-term design where there is curbs and things like that that would be adjusted. It really would be up to us to see what the community wants, see what the budget would afford. But as a concept, this would kind of provide those extra
Wait,
refuge
can I just
areas.
ask a question? In this concept, isn't the car, because the car is now behind the bike lanes, isn't it further away from seeing who's coming down Woodward? Doesn't it have less visibility towards Woodward?
It's set up in a way that, because it is a signalized intersection, so someone would not be turning. If they would be turning, there'd be a
That's
traffic
what you mean by
infraction.
signalized
Right, yes.
intersection.
Signalized, and there would be a required no turn on red that would go along with that.
Okay.
Which we have some of those on Woodward today. But
Okay.
it does pull back, so people aren't, like, what I typically see, people pulled into crosswalks. And so enforcement and education would obviously have to go along with any of this, but, and this is more of the full reconstruction model.
So because I think it's easy to question on this design, you're really widening the walk bicycle path. So what are the plans to make sure that pedestrian signals inform bicyclists as well as pedestrian walkers to stop, when traffic is going through? Because my concern is that people are just going to continue to buzz through on their bikes without seeing proper signals.
Yeah, absolutely. We looked at a couple of different options. You could consider doing bike signals as well that go along with crosswalks. You could tie those to the pedestrian signals. So there's a number of options we could do. We didn't get that far, I think, in this conceptual, but I think there's a lot of examples around the country that could be used, and some that have just been installed nearby as well. This is just a different look at more of the reconstruction option. So this is more of probably a longer term play rather than short term, but this is an example of an intersection that's not signalized. So the vehicle that is trying to pull on Woodward, they would be stopping short of the side path there, and then they have that opportunity once the cross traffic is clear that they can kind of pull out, and that gives them a better visibility where those little hash marks are right here. So that, and I'm not sure the exact width there, but that gives people more of the visibility. So it is sort of a 2-stage stop area, but there's no signal there, so it's no turn on red. So there, would obviously be signage that goes with all of that, but not no turn on red. And this, I would also say, items 4 that are listed on this list show off some sustainable elements that could be included, some bioswales and things like that, that I think are a priority, including going forward, but may not be part of an initial simple research.
Obviously, all of this would be subject to costs and budgeting and.
Absolutely.
We're not approving the budget for anything tonight.
No, so tonight's really about, here's a concept that we think warrants further exploration going forward. Speaking with the state officials at MDOT, they have an entire checklist of items that we still have to do, but to go to the state and other grant authorities and showing them that we have a concept idea in place, this would get us to that next stage. This is just another example of what an overhead look at that two-way side path and the parking could be. In reviewing this safety audit, there was, obviously we look at all the past plans, so The strategic plan talks a lot about accessible transportation and regional partnerships. Ferndale Moves, obviously, we got a lot of feedback a few years ago on Woodward and the barrier that it is, and this really just follows up on that, and obviously the master plan includes a lot of that feedback as well as the climate agreement signed from last year, I believe. So really, the next steps, staff wanted to get council's thoughts and, blessing on moving forward with this sort of concept, knowing that, there are a lot of questions to remain. This is very much a concept. There's not a guarantee that all of this would make it into a resurfacing plan next year. It could be something further down the road, but sort of aligns with the path that we've been going on. The next item that...
Will it come back to council for a final, or will this now go into the design world, planning in other places, and it wouldn't require council approval?
So the final design and next phases of design would come to council.
Okay.
This is more of just to just get initial feedback and a blessing on, can pursue this concept and see where it goes.
Okay.
The next steps would be the traffic study, which council did approve as part of the consent agenda, so we would work with our partners in Pleasant Ridge on that, and that would require to see if this concept is even feasible from an engineering perspective, traffic signal timing, all of that. So it's important to note that this traffic study would be required even if we just wanted to change pedestrian signal timing. So it really covers a lot. So I think the traffic study, it's covering a lot of areas well different than I think some of our other studies we've done in the past. And the parameters of the study were required by MDOT. They gave us a checklist so we can look at whatever, so we can include whatever's required. After the traffic study, we'd like to share the data and just talk about this concept idea in general at a community meeting, probably September, maybe October. Potentially there'd be some more design work that would be done in September, November based on the options of the study. We really can't do a whole lot until the study is complete. And then MDOT's targeting April to August 2020 for resurfacing. And our thought is that to get as much information available as possible so we can include pieces of this. A lot of it, all of it, just depends on what the cost is, what the traffic study says. So we were just thrilled to have some great community feedback in this process, and just know that it's still coming, or there'll be more to come. And the full study was included in the packet, but it is also available at ferndalemoves.com in the recent projects area, and then also on the city's homepage. If you go to current projects, the link is in the Woodward page as well.
I made through the chair. I'll support this tonight, but I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't vote to support a design because there's a big chunk missing here, and that's a mitigation study for the entire, or a mitigation plan for the entire resurfacing, and this only complicates that. So I have no clue of what the mitigation plan is during the resurfacing for next year. I wouldn't want to go too far down this path until there was a comfortable solution in front of us to know how we're going to manage and do that. So I think this is fine tonight, but part of the work in the package needs to come back with is that mitigation strategy.
Absolutely.
Because we've got other projects that won't be done by then. It's going to be thick.
Right. And I think I also should add too, the timing for the project wasn't something that, we happen to be doing this study, but MDOT, they're the ones that set the timeline for the resurfacing. So I think, more conversation.
Nothing against MDOT, but they're not going to give a crap about mitigation. We need to worry about it.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to address us on this before council?
Wow.
Yeah.
Evelyn Elster, West Drayton. Once again, $70,000. Whether you implement this or not, if you bottleneck Woodward, there will be an increase in pollution and fuel consumption. And that's for 12 months out of the year, not just the 7 months that the biker gangs can come through, bicycle gangs. 66 people in the survey had absolutely no affiliation with Ferndale whatsoever. So this survey was stacked. There's no doubt about that. This is just getting more and more ridiculous all the time. The pipe dreams are getting way out of hand. And you can't keep loading this on our backs like this. This city will break. Please, stop this.
Hi, I'm Melanie Piana, 387 West Lewiston. I just wanted to express my support for exploring the design. This has been 20 years in the making. Former mayors Porter and Covey and DDA boards of directors have been trying to solve the challenges of improving safety of getting across Woodward. We're the only community on the Woodward corridor that is, our downtown is bisected by 8 lanes. And so we really have a safety issue of making sure children, seniors, and just people getting across the street safely at all parts of the Woodward corridor, not only in Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge. I do recommend that the council consider, after the design phase, an education phase. And that needs to be included in there as part of the outreach and engagement of how any new designs would be. And that would be in partnership with MDOT, and there's a lot of materials from SEMCOG as well on how to use these new safety features. And Detroit is putting them in as well. So if you're ever down in Detroit, a lot of these design attributes that are being put in the streets are starting to do so nationally, because these create safer streets for everyone. And another issue that I've heard a lot from residents is biking on our sidewalks. And the reason cyclists, people biking, choose to ride on the sidewalks is because they don't feel safe riding on the street. And when you provide an own travel lane for someone riding a bike and that's separated from traffic, you are now making it safer for people driving, safer for people walking, and safer for people biking. Not sure what the design will look like at the end, but definitely have heard from residents and business owners throughout the course of the 15 years I've lived here that this is like the big kahuna to fix in order to connect our downtown together.
Thank you. Good evening, Dennis.
Howdy. I think that this whole project of bike paths on Woodward should just be scrapped. I find it to be very unsafe. You know, if you got to be 16 years old to drive, why would you want to put your little kid in on a seat behind you and go down Woodward Avenue? I drive Woodward Avenue from about 9 Mile all the way up to 14 Mile just about every day. And I see what goes on out there. I see it in the morning and I see it in the afternoon. And when I'm out on the town in the evening with my wife, I've seen what's going on out there. Our police department doesn't have enough officers to cover a traffic ticket if they stop somebody to make them feel safe on Woodward. Now you're talking about a bike path. Why not put that bike path in the median? You got all that grass right there. Get it off the road. Get them away from the cars. Put it both ways on the median. Might look a little stupid, but if you really want to do something like that, put it in the median. You got all that room up there. But to put it on Woodward Avenue, most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I sit on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I sit here and I tell you that I have voted for nice things to happen in these parks and that, but I can't vote for this. I can't even support this stupid idea. Okay? You want to put some little young kid out there on the street behind a bike and watch some of these idiots drive? It's on your shoulders, not mine.
Sharon.
I'm Sharon Chess, and I love riding my bike, and I love feeling safe riding my bike, and I ride my bike most of the time in Oak Park because it's less traffic. My concerns with the bike lanes on Woodward are multiple fold. The traffic on Woodward, the debris that is always on Woodward, it makes it more difficult to keep that bike path clean. Our Woodward Dream Cruise, when that comes up and you have 4 lanes of traffic just going, thousands and thousands of people going, it's unsafe. I want us to have the bike lanes, but to me, it makes more sense connecting our cities down Livernois. Livernois will be broadening their bike lanes and connecting our cities with the city of Detroit. I can drive all the way, or ride all the way up Scotia and get in through Huntington Woods and Berkeley up to Lincoln Street and go that way. But at this point, doing it on Woodward does not make sense to me. Making our pedestrian crossings definitely 100% make them as safe as possible. I see it all the time. Bikers just hurry up and think they can make the cross, or walkers are meandering because they're trying to get across while walking on their phone or talking with stuff like that. So pedestrian friendly, I think we definitely need to pay attention to that. I think it needs to be rethought about having the bike lane on Woodward for those purposes. And then also when you're looking at design for that, keep in mind that a lot of us are height challenged. So when you come to the corners, any type of design that you're doing, somebody that's riding in a smart car or a smaller, lower car or height challenged, we have to really crank our necks around to see beyond these flower pots or trees or flowers that are, we've had such wonderful rain, they're growing 4 feet tall. So they block, our view. So keep that type of design in mind as well as you're doing that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Comments or motion from council?
Do we have to have a motion to make comments?
Yes, you can ask questions, but comments and opinions would require them.
It doesn't look like there is a financial approval in this. That is correct?
That is.
Okay. I move to approve the Woodward Avenue bicycling and pedestrian safety audit as part of the city's non-motorized transportation plan as submitted by the planning manager.
Support. Moved by Polika, supported by Martin. Now, comments, questions, thoughts?
So, 20 years ago, the residents thought that Mayor Gettert was crazy for removing a lane on 9 Mile, and that it was just going to make the city worse, and there were just going to be empty street parking spaces on 9 Mile. And that actually was the reverse. It exploded 9 Mile. People slowed down. You had to slow down. That's what we need for Woodward. And the only way you're going to do this is by doing this kind of study and moving in this direction. The only place I feel safe walking across Woodward is in downtown Detroit, where there's 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes going south. I can't reject a road project based on one weekend event a year, which is the Dream Cruise. It makes no sense, that we have to have 4 lanes to support a one-day-a-year event. This is the direction that society is moving into. It's moving into pedestrian walking. It's moving into non-motorized transportation. And we can either be on the forefront or we can be forced to make the decisions later when it's going to be more costly. I choose to be a pioneer.
Other comments or questions?
No.
Yes. So I'm just thinking back to maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago when I happened to be just sitting at, I believe it's the light on College, the turnaround light on College, I think it is. And watching this lady just kind of traipsing across Woodward while the cars are kind of speeding down, and I just watched her fly in the air and hit the pavement, deceased. That was a day that my son was having an event at his school, but because I was right there, right smack in front of that accident, I had to stay there and tell what I saw, and I totally missed his event. But I can't forget that day and how fast the speeds are, how fast the drivers are going on Woodward. This person, there was no malintent, didn't mean to do it, but it happened. Whereas I support a study, a safety audit on Woodward, I think it's really going to have to be thorough and really going to have to be really well thought out, because right now, today, the bike paths on Woodward, I don't know how that's going to work and how that's going to pan out. But I also know that I'm always seeing people biking on the sidewalks and all up and down Woodward that way because it's not safe to be there. So with this audit going on, I welcome, all kinds of input. I hope you do too, from community members about what your ideas are, because as of right now, there's a problem, but there's not a solution. So I hope to hear your ideas as well as pondering my own.
And I guess I would just pick up on the point you made that some of these intersections are extremely dangerous. So if this audit and the traffic study do nothing else but help us redesign some really dangerous, I'm surprised there aren't more accidents, and that's already unacceptable. It will certainly be worth it. And if we can improve the safety of motorists, both cars and bikes and pedestrians in the process, I would support that. So I encourage you to continue to study, and I'm supportive of this motion. All right. Marty, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Thank you, Justin. And then finally, the item D is the consideration of a construction management agreement addendum number 4. And Joe, you're going to introduce that item.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. Tonight, I'm presenting a change order, which hasn't been introduced since we brought the original contract agreement with Colasanti to City Council in February 2014. So this change order is really the representative of some changes within the scope of work that have occurred as a result of going 25 feet down below to construct the below-grade portion of the project. Changes related to foundations and the northern elevation, or the northern earth retention system required the change order. I can say that going below grade, these kind of things, this is where you're going to use your cash reserves. Fortunately, we budgeted in the pro forma the council approved sufficient reserves, both within the project budget and also using uncommitted cash reserve funds from the auto parking fund to support these kind of changes. And I would also remind, we're building one level below ground, which was a request by the residents to help us mitigate any height impact within the PUD. So with that, we do have members of the design team and Colasanti here to answer any technical questions, should you have any.
All right, does council have any questions? Or a motion?
So this is covered, I'm sorry, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, they always say that, you should consider 10%, add 10% of your project budget, because you're always going to run over.
So this is covered by what we set aside for contingency.
We had this budgeted in contingency within the pro forma,
This
yes.
is not an overrun.
Correct. This was anticipated that we had this reserve from the auto parking fund available should we need it.
All right. I would move that we approve the construction management agreement addendum 4 in the amount of $585,136 and charge to parking contingent funds 585,000,977,000.
Support.
All right, been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Thanks for coming anyway, guys.
Sticking around with us, too.
Yeah.
But these things happen in a project, especially with the weather we've had and the issues we've had, so. All right. Hearing none, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on now to item 7E. This is a fun one. It will be the oath of office for our newest colleague on council. So Marnie, you're going to swear in Councilman appointee Dennis Whitey.
This is where we get the paddles, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to move back.
Okay. I do like a lawyer.
Suck it in, Dennis.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Dennis Whitey,
I, Dennis White,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of this state,
the Constitution of this state,
and the Charter of the City of Ferndale,
and the Charter of the City of Ferndale,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of City Council member
of City Council member
in and for the City of Ferndale,
in and for the City of Ferndale,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of Michigan,
and State of Michigan,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. So help me God.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Dennis, congratulations.
Have a seat, Councilman. We're almost done.
I'll have you sign that.
All right. So that concludes our regular agenda. Concludes it very nicely. Next item of business would be the call to council. So I saw the police chief here. Anything for the good of the community, chief? Nope. Fire chief, anything for the good of the community? No. Dan, anything else from DPW this evening? No. Wow. I know, right?
Yeah.
Are we? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you behind our library director. Yes, recreation this time of year better have something good going on. Excellent.
Good evening, council. Been a long time since I've seen all you guys. I've been
Yeah,
busy with
welcome
summer
back.
camp. So, from recreation, we have a handful of things to distribute. I'll try to be brief because I know everybody wants to get home. We have our Unity Party coming up this Friday from 6 to 8 at the Cooler Community Center. It is open to the public and free to everybody that comes. It's sort of like a backyard barbecue type vibe. We're going to have a live DJ. We're going to have different backyard games that we'll be playing. And it is also serves as a celebration and appreciation of all of the sponsors, businesses, organizations, and volunteers that have helped us out with various events throughout the year. So come on out to that. Next week, we'll be hosting a sort of pilot program it's called the I Can 2 Camp, which will be a camp that is designed and specifically targets the teenage demographic, that 13 to 18-year-old demographic that we haven't been able to serve as well in the past. So this camp will be centered on arming the teens or our participants with some of the tools and life skills that they'll need that they can't necessarily get in a traditional educational institution. So we'll be teaching about financial literacy, about various aspects of body health and things along that line. So we're hoping to use this as a pathway to implement a larger program for next year that'll run parallel to our normal summer camp. So we'll see how that goes. On Saturday, August 24th, from 11 to 3, we're going to be hosting the Fall Mom to Mom sale. We already have like 40 different tables for vendors that have already signed up to sell. So we're hoping to get enough foot traffic for everybody to come out and see what the different vendors have to offer. That'll be at the Cooley Community Center as well.
Did you say that's August 24th?
Yes.
I hate calling that fall. Go ahead. Sorry.
Should we call it summer? I think we call it summer. I think
It is August. It's summer.
Yeah, that's fine. Summer camp is almost over, so like summer's over for me in a minute.
All right.
We have a walking tour fitness program that's up and running for the seniors. That was a result of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Catalyst grant that we received last year. The class meets every Monday and Friday morning. It's a 1-hour walk around Howard Park in addition to education about different health risks that can come from a sedentary lifestyle. And we also, I'm going to read this verbatim because I don't know anything about it. The Skate Park Ambassador Program says we are currently...
Thank you for being honest.
We are currently forming and seeking community ambassadors for our Friends of Ferndale Skate Park group. If you know anyone that has gone above and beyond to help keep our park clean, safe, and respected, please shoot us an email to nominate them. Ambassadors will be our eyes, ears, and sounding board to optimize the positive impact our skate park has upon our community. The kickoff meeting will be held in the upcoming weeks. Police and fire will also be in attendance to meet our ambassadors and share safety information.
Excellent.
That's about it.
If I
Well-
can, go ahead, sir.
Good.
Through the chair, I had the opportunity to host a board retreat at Kulik Center this past Saturday, and I got to tell you, the staff and everybody was fabulous. So if you're looking for a reasonably priced meeting space, really the Kulik Center is the way to go, especially on a Saturday morning. There's good capacity there, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. We do our absolute best to cater to our rentees' needs. So, yeah, we appreciate the comment.
Awesome.
It's also a great place to host a graduation open house.
Is that coming up for Owen?
Owen, are you kidding me?
You did it already.
Owen's a baby. He's my
Okay.
baby.
16? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Dan, anything from HR this evening? No, sure, from finance? No.
Skip the library.
Huh?
Skip the library.
Library?
The library, did you say?
Yeah.
She typically, yeah,
Okay.
I don't
Sorry.
skip her intentionally. Welcome to, if you're welcome to share anything for the library, now we're putting you on the spot. Okay. Cheryl, anything from finance? All right, Kara? No. Jordan? Yeah, anything from community and economic development?
Yes, I actually want to give CED's time to the library. I'm sorry, I'd like to stay employed. So, a quick update, and this is sort of a shout out to a bunch of partners, including the DDA, Parks and Rec. I just wanted to give folks at home a heads up that we have a temporary restoration for Schiffer Park that's been going in over the past couple weeks. We engaged with a local artist to do some muraling on the concrete there. The DPW stepped up. We're going to get some AstroTurf in there, and the DDA and Cindy's team really came to the table to bring some additional funds, because our goal, if council recalls, is to, on a very small budget, try to provide some temporary restoration to this park so it can be used, it can be fun, it can look nice for the year while we get ready to put in the park bond dollars next spring. The developers adjacent to the project are actually donating $90,000 to the restoration of the park. We're trying to save those dollars for the full restoration. So if you get out there, get a chance, Blooms Florist donated some flowers. So there's a lot of other donors that came together to make that a really nice space. The AstroTurf, if it's not already in, it's coming in the next couple days. So just want to give folks a heads up that after a couple-year hiatus, Schiffer Park can now start being used again. And the DDA is actually, Cindy's going to be working with her team to do some activation as well, some fun stuff there. So just a quick shout out to all those folks, and go out there and enjoy it.
Cool, thank you. Let's see, you're throwing me off, I'll do you next. Marty, anything from the clerk's office?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that a lot of communities are having an election tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ferndale is not, so I realize that we get this question a lot, like the day before an election or on election day when we are not having an election. So a lot of communities have a primary for their council members. Ferndale by charter does not. We also have no proposals, so there is no election in Ferndale tomorrow. I'm actually offering my services to Sharon and Birmingham for part of the day. And just an update on AV ballot applications. They will be mailed out near the end of this month. And we can mail them out up to 75 days prior to the election, so they'll go out, but the ballots will not be available until 45 days prior to the election, which is after September 21st. So just want people to know, keep an eye out for your AV application. We have quite an increase in our permanent absentee voter list. Those are the folks we send these applications to first. We also have a spot on our website where you can sign up for the permanent absentee voter list. Now that there's no reason absentee voting, we encourage people who might want to do that, who haven't in the past, to go ahead and sign up. And looking forward to a great turnout in November.
Excellent.
Sorry,
Thank you.
For clarity.
Yeah.
The ballots won't be available till after the 24th of September?
The Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act requires that ballots be available by September 21st.
Okay.
And so which is 45 days prior to the election. However, not sure how many we're going to be stuffing, and it's me and Barb and whatever temps we can get to help us. So the bulk of the absentee ballots will all be mailed on the same day the following week. So end of September will be ballots available, and we'll be communicating that, of course, as it gets closer.
But you usually prioritize the military overseas ballots, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people won't receive a ballot till after the 21st, 24th?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, so it's about a month lag between the application and the ballot.
Excellent. Thank you. City Manager Joe Gausha.
I would just remind council and the public that the regularly scheduled agenda for the 13th has been moved to today, so our next meeting time will be moved to August 26th, I believe. It will be the next city council meeting. So just a reminder to the public, there is no council meeting on the 13th.
The 12th.
On the 12th, thank you.
Or the 13th.
Or, for that fact, definitely not the 13th.
Thank you. Dan, anything from?
Just briefly, with the state passing its emergency administrative rules for recreational marijuana, there will be a report that will be provided with initial recommendations for council's next meeting.
Thank you. All right. Councilman Martin.
This Wednesday is the planning commission at 6:30, right? Yeah. Thank you. So I would encourage anyone, especially anyone running for office, to attend the planning commission. It's somewhat overlooked, but there's a ton that goes on at the planning commission that does not have to come to council. And so, in fact, I believe Suburban's on the agenda, right, Wednesday? So please, you're welcome to come, and another really important board that there's a lot happening in the city. So, thank you.
Good reminder. Yes. Councilwoman Leaks May.
Yes, so I just want to congratulate council what do we say? What does it say?
Dennis.
Councilman now.
Councilman Whitey to the table, and I just also want to further reiterate that to Kat Verner James, this is a 5-month hiatus, and I expect to see you sworn in January. All right.
Councilman Whitey, anything you want to share with that?
Just real briefly, it's been a long meeting. First, it's a different perspective sitting on this end of the table. I didn't know there was TV screens down there.
I think it's cute that you think this is a long meeting.
We want people to think that we're pondering when we're looking this way.
True. But I appreciate all of your confidence in the unanimous vote. I look forward to working with the city staff. One thing, the 3 others I wanted to thank was Kat, as well as Colin and Sherry. Just met Colin tonight, but have known Sherry forever, as well as Kat. So all of us were very worthy. I was just lucky enough to get up here, I think. So I appreciate the positive nature and actually the communication. And also what I love about Ferndale is I've been sitting the entire meeting with my primary opponent in the election coming up, sitting right next to her, and she was the first to congratulate me and wish me well. So that just says something for Ferndale. I love being up here. Thank you.
Indeed it does. Thank you. Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
A couple things, real quick. I know that Jeannie Davis mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate, August 14th at 11 a.m., the Ferndale Senior Candidate Forum. It is hosted by the seniors, but everyone is welcome, and it really will be your first chance to meet the candidates for the first time all in the same room. So I encourage people who can to attend. We also have, because we don't have a meeting next week, we have the Dream Cruise coming up on the 17th. August 17th.
That is correct. Where did our special event director go?
Yeah, what happened to Michael?
I saw him here.
Just to remind us about that. Yeah.
And I believe it's the 25th anniversary.
It is
It is the 25th anniversary, yeah.
And we have a ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Yep.
That everyone is in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
No, that's
still in
fine.
your
You can
front.
talk about it when that detail. I also want to congratulate Councilman Whitey on his appointment, and that is all I think I have.
Yeah, I would just add, so 5 o'clock on a week from Friday, we'll do our official, Ferndale is where the dream began, as we like to say. It is where it started, and so we get to officially kick it off, and there'll be celebrities and bands and things, and so it's always a good time on Friday at 5 o'clock to stop by and watch us officially kick off the Dream Cruise. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you for 4 months anyway, 5 months. And that's all I have. So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.